That may be the greatest catch I've ever seen in my life.
Okay, so we're going to go through, talk about my favorite thing to talk about. It's not even close. We're going to talk about Dynasty Fantasy Football. I apologize that we can't get a Dynasty Fantasy Football video out every single day like we do in the offseason, but I'm just having to focus way too much in on redraft. While I enjoy redraft, everybody watching this video knows how much better Dynasty Fantasy Football is. I mean, my God, if I could just convince everybody to play Dynasty so we would only have to talk about Dynasty 24/7, that would be the dream. But anyway, let's go through. And what we're going to be trying to accomplish is we're going to try to at least pick out 5 perfect Dynasty buy low targets. Now, we're going to get to the players in just a second. Before that, I want to talk about the strategy at this time of the year, because our Dynasty trade strategy should be drastically changing literally probably in week 5. That's when you're going to see the tide shift for the Dynasty marketplace. But for now, I mean, there are some very clear buying opportunities. You know, last week we said to sell Tyson Williams, to sell Elijah Mitchell, to sell Chris Carson. I mean, those secondary running backs that we said, I mean, they're not really making that much of an impact on a contending roster. And we know that they are only short-term value. So sell them ASAP, as we're not talking about them this upcoming offseason. Well, we're still kind of in that same scenario where everybody in your league for the time being still views themselves as a contending roster. Now, of course, there's always going to be 1 or 2 people in the league that, I mean, they were planning on tanking coming into the season. They've already loaded up on future draft picks. But outside of that, if there were a bunch of teams that were like, okay, well, let's take it and let's plan it by ear. I mean, let's wait until we get to about week 5, week 6, see if we're going to be a rebuilder or a contender. At this point, all those owners, they're going, okay, I need to start my lineup. I need to get points in here. I need to be trying to get these wins ASAP. And while they may be able to just go through and focus in on that, we know that if you take a step back, there are going to be some players that may not necessarily be scoring points right now, but they're going to have a tremendous amount of this value this offseason. So, of course, make sure you go down there, drop a like on the video, subscribe to the channel, and please leave a comment letting me know your favorite Dynasty Fantasy Football target. And yeah, let's go through and let's pull up our first guy. You know we have to talk about him. There's no better chance to buy him than right now, Trey Lance. Okay, so 9 out of 10 people watching this video right now, I know, are already so tired of hearing me talk about Trey Lance. I mean, this is a player that we talked about time and time again all offseason. As soon as the 49ers traded up to take him at 3rd overall, I was like, this is someone I kind of want to take at the 101. Now, of course, we couldn't, just because the Dynasty marketplace would be losing out on way too much value with Trevor Lawrence. So we kind of forced to take Lawrence over him. But 100%, I was just out here battling the trolls all summer, battling everybody, telling them that if you drafted Justin Fields over Trey Lance, you were a fish, based on the reasons that you're looking with Trey Lance, and you're saying, well, he is going to be stepping into a situation where he is the starting quarterback for the 49ers. And I'm not going to lie, I was really rooting against the 49ers against the Packers on Sunday night because I want him to start sooner rather than later. But he is going to step into a situation with Brandon Ayuk, Deebo Samuel, George Kittle, Kyle Shanahan, a good offensive line. This is going to be a better situation for Trey Lance than any quarterback that has ever been drafted in the top 3, at least that I can remember. I mean, the top 3 overall picks at the quarterback position, I mean, they never step into a situation that this is this good, based on the fact that, I mean, if their offense was that good, they wouldn't be picking the top 3 to begin with. But I mean, the 49ers had the worst possible luck ever throughout their entire roster last year with injuries. I mean, Nick Bosa, Jimmy Garoppolo, just everybody falling down around them. George Kittle, even, it seems like they lost their best 5 players last season due to injury. So, I mean, it took a team that was in the Super Bowl to being the 12th pick overall, and they said, that's not high enough. Let's go. Let's get a stud quarterback in Trey Lance. He is such a bona fide stud that we are going to be taking 2 future first-round picks, which, keep in mind, this isn't the NBA. This is a big deal in the NFL. They're taking those 2 future first-round picks combined with the 12th pick overall, which, I mean, the 12th pick overall, you can get like a Rashawn Slater there. And they're going through and packaging that together to trade up for Trey Lance. And with Trey Lance, so he's stepping into this situation. And real quick, as a quick side note, I know some trolls are going, oh, well, Dak Prescott stepped into a good situation. Russell Wilson stepped into a good situation. Yeah, they were drafted way later in the NFL draft. It's a completely different situation. And here with Trey Lance, he also has that rushing upside to go along with it. I know that, I mean, a lot of people want to just talk about the fact that he is getting brought in and kind of getting used like Taysom Hill in some of these packages. When they're in the red zone, they'll bring him in. He'll steal a rushing touchdown. Now, I'm not excited about the rushing production just because of that. I'm more so excited because you go back to college and his rushing production, whenever he started that entire season, was just unbelievable. And he's a monstrous guy. You see him out on the field with how big he looks. This is Josh Allen. This is Cam Newton all over again. So please, while he is not starting, go trade for Trey Lance. I am really hoping that you drafted Trey Lance over Justin Fields this year, because I'm telling you, once we get Lance in there, this is going to be someone that is untouchable in Dynasty. Now, our next player is going to be someone that I don't want to call him a buy low because his value kind of went up last week, but I think that now with the dip, we can actually make that target. Rondell Moore. With Rondell Moore, y'all know this was a player that I loved in Dynasty this offseason. However, I mean, I wasn't necessarily thinking that he was going to have a large impact at the beginning of the year for the Arizona Cardinals, based on them giving AJ Green like $8 million to come over, based on them still having Christian Kirk on that rookie contract, having an alpha wide receiver in DeAndre Hopkins. So Rondell Moore, I mean, I thought that he was a clear sell high candidate after week 2 in a redraft league, but in Dynasty Fantasy Football, this is someone you have to get so excited about what we have seen through the first 2 weeks. And I know in week 3, he was disappointing, but that's going to open up a small buying opportunity, because if you look at the wide receivers in this offense, Larry Fitzgerald, 1-year deal. Christian Kirk last year on that rookie contract. So going into 2022, this will be the year that you have DeAndre Hopkins still, of course, as that alpha wide receiver for Arizona, but then you're going to have Rondell Moore as the bona fide wide receiver 2 for Arizona. Even if they decide to bring back Christian Kirk, we know that if Rondell Moore is a top 3 wide receiver option here, he's going to be playing almost every single snap. His efficiency on a per snap basis has been ridiculous with the amount of targets that he's able to draw on a route run. So, I mean, with Rondell, you have to be very excited. The situation's going to be great next year. So, I mean, we're going to keep our main stance saying that this is a player that you can't be too excited about trading for and starting right now, but that long-term value definitely going to be here. Now, our next trade target will be A.J. Brown. With A.J. Brown, my God, there may never be a chance to buy A.J. Brown at this price tag again. Based on what we had as him of a prospect coming out of Ole Miss, then he gets to the NFL, the most efficient wide receiver in the entire NFL as a rookie in 2019. Then in 2020, of course, he completely crushes. In 2021, I mean, I was saying to buy A.J. Brown on the low in our redraft leagues going into week 3, saying this is a wide receiver that led Tennessee in targets both week 1 and week 2. Now, that didn't necessarily pan out, but it doesn't necessarily matter because we know that with A.J. Brown, I mean, we've already seen him have that elite efficiency mark through the first 2 years in his career. So if all of a sudden he is still leading this team in targets, there's no reason to expect anything different than A.J. Brown to come out here and just completely crush from a fantasy football perspective. And he is only in year 3 right now. So I think now with the hamstring strain, with him disappointing through the first few weeks, I'm telling you, I am not viewing A.J. Brown for his long-term value any different than how I was before. A.J. Brown is still a top 3 wide receiver in Dynasty. If you could go trade Cooper Kupp for A.J. Brown, if I would go trade Cooper Kupp plus a piece to get to A.J. Brown right now, that's a no-brainer deal for a Dynasty league, just looking at the trajectory that A.J. Brown has throughout his entire career, combined with the fact that you're still going to get that elite production near the end of the season. I know it's like the easiest call ever, but we're going to include him here. Now, our next player is going to be someone I didn't really love in rookie drafts, but Rashad Bateman. Now, with Rashad Bateman, this is just the perfect time to trade for him, understanding that everybody's submitting their starting lineups right now. Like I said, in 2 weeks, it's going to be a completely different ordeal. Like once we get to week 6, once we get to week 7, that's when the teams that are 1-5, they're going to be having to look at themselves and go, well, you know what? I'm not a contender like I thought. And that's when they're going to be having the fire sale. That's when they're going to be going through and selling Joe Mixon for like a 2022 second and third round pick. And you're sitting there going, my God, you just sold that veteran player for nothing, just no long-term value at all. But it's the complete opposite right now. Like it's so weird in Dynasty. And that's why I don't love making Dynasty videos through the season. Just knowing how that short-term production is valued at the beginning of the year. And then it just switches on a dime halfway through the season once you have a handful of teams realizing that they have no shot to contend. But right now is still that time where you can trade for that future production at this discount. With Rashad Bateman, just know once he is healthy from that groin injury, once he's going to come back off the PUP, this will be someone that people are just nonstop getting that chatter about. I mean, imagine what the Dynasty community is going to be saying when Rashad Bateman slides in, and Sammy Watkins has been pretty damn productive this year. It's surprising to see Lamar Jackson's passing volume that we have had in this offense. I mean, he's throwing the ball, it seems like, I mean, I don't have the numbers pulled up, but it seems like he's throwing the ball and putting up more points for Sammy Watkins as well as Hollywood Brown than we have seen with his wide receiver room over the past few years. Rashad Bateman's still clearly that great talent. And then also, if we go to this wide receiver room here, I mean, you have Miles Boykin also injured. I mean, yes, Devin Duvernay we kind of like, but I mean, Sammy Watkins only playing on that 1-year contract where obviously they took Bateman in the first. He was a great prospect coming out of Minnesota for X, Y, and Z. I mean, he had the young breakout age. He had a great dominator. He was a prototypical size wide receiver. He gets drafted in the first round. Everything you look for. And right now, you're getting that discount because he's injured, but I'm telling you that nobody is going to be discounting him once we get to next offseason. Definitely want to be including him here. As well as, let's just go through. Let's talk about some more of these injured players because I think that it's such like a cheat code right now in Dynasty Fantasy Football. It's literally a cheat code. And that Jerry Judy is a wide receiver that I didn't necessarily really like coming into this year based on the situation that he was in, based on Teddy Bridgewater not being a quarterback we are excited about, based on the fact that Courtland Sutton was going to be seeing a considerable amount of targets, based on the fact that Noah Fant was going to be that receiving tight end of this offense. I was looking to avoid Jerry Judy, but going back to week 1, Judy had a fantastic week where he did look like he was taking off as this alpha wide receiver for the Denver Broncos offense. Going back to what we had with the Christian Kirk situation in Arizona, we know that Courtland Sutton coming out of SMU was actually in that same exact draft class where he is currently on the last year of his rookie contract. And of course, it's possible that Courtland Sutton is going to be brought back by Denver this offseason. But I mean, just understanding that Jerry Judy has the talent profile that he does, that we would imagine that Denver is able to maybe make a play for Aaron Rodgers this upcoming offseason, and then the situation's drastically better. And right now you're getting him at that discount based on the high ankle sprain that he suffered. I think Jerry Judy is a perfect buy low candidate. And I know it's boring because we're going to go through and we're going to talk about one more injured player. Then we'll get to a different thing at the end of the video based more so around trading picks. But let's go over to Travis Etienne right now. With Travis Etienne, I think we clearly see that Urban Meyer was not planning on using James Robinson as a 3-down running back in this backfield, that Travis Etienne was going to be the DeAndre Swift mold. I mean, what did we talk about all offseason with DeAndre Swift and Travis Etienne? When people were avoiding them, we were saying, don't avoid them. They're the new Alvin Kamara. They're the new Aaron Jones. They're these running backs that are going to get every valuable target out of their backfield, every valuable touch in the form of touches in the red zone. I mean, we've already seen it with DeAndre Swift. I think we're going to get that same thing from Travis Etienne. My stance remains the same, as well as the fact that now you're just looking at this overall situation and that Travis Etienne is in the back of everyone's mind. You could throw J.K. Dobbins on here. Now, Cam Akers, on the other hand, Cam Akers is a lot harder to talk about because that Cam Akers injury, while you know how much we loved Akers, I had him as my dynasty running back 4 before the injury. I mean, it's a lot harder to say trade for Cam Akers given the torn Achilles. Makes the running back possibly just never return to what he once was. I'm not worried at all about the injury to Travis Etienne here, as well as Carlos Hyde will be out of this situation next offseason. We clearly see Urban Meyer doesn't love James Robinson, so he was probably planning on getting Travis Etienne a large role. So yeah, I think Etienne is a great trade target right now. I mean, go trade Elijah Mitchell, go trade Trey Sermon, go trade any of those middling running backs and get a running back coming in that literally has the profile where he has the size, the speed, the draft capital, the receiving capability, everything that we're looking for from the running back position. And lastly, let me talk about something that we can also be looking at. 2022 draft picks. Now, 2022 draft picks, I don't care if you're a rebuilding roster. I don't care if you are a contending roster. If you could load up on a couple 2022 draft picks right now, it is going to be fantastic. Because going back to what we were talking about with the Dynasty Marketplace, right now, right after week 3, going into week 4, even possibly going into week 5, this is going to be the time that everybody is looking for production in their lineup right now. Just in a few weeks, you are going to have teams putting on a fire sale with those veteran players. So even if you're a contending team, even if you're a team going, well, Mason, you know what? I mean, I saw your sell high video on Tyson Williams last week. I know I could have gotten a second and a third, but I was wanting his production. What happened if I got to the fantasy playoffs and I needed a running back? Well, what you need to be doing right now is understanding that those players that don't project to be cornerstone assets for your team for a very long time, and you're not starting them, it doesn't matter if you're a contender. Trade them away, bring in some second and thirds. That way, once we get to the fantasy football playoffs and you actually possibly need to go through and trade for some production right now, just think about how the marketplace is going to be. You'll have it by the time we get to week 12. How many teams are realistically going to be trying to trade for veterans? I mean, by the time we get to week 12, I mean, you would imagine that the top 2 or 3 teams in the league are so dominant that they would never consider trading for a depth running back too. If anything, they're just going to be trading to try to bolster the top of their roster with players like Dalvin Cook, Derrick Henry. Now, the teams 3 through, I mean, even include 7, even include the team trying to get into the playoffs that's right outside. Those will be the players that are actually trying to trade for those more so depth pieces. Those are going to be the guys trying to go out and trade for maybe Chris Carson, Damian Harris. I mean, those veteran running backs, or you can even throw in some veteran wide receivers. I mean, throw in a Robert Woods here, even though Woods has been very disappointing. But the marketplace for those teams are going to be really capped down to like 4 teams. I mean, there are probably going to be 4 teams trying to trade for those depth players. And the rest of the league, in terms of everybody that's out of the playoffs, they're going to be putting on that fire sale, and they're just looking for any rookie picks that they can get. So if you're one of those 4 teams that's actually looking to go through and try to pick up those guys at a discount, I'm telling you right now, you'll be able to trade just say a second for Robert Woods and a third. I mean, you'll get some ridiculous values where you want to have those picks later on. So you can pick up those bargains. So you can definitely keep the flexibility because you don't know if you're going to need a tight end. You don't know if you're going to need a running back by the time we get to that point. So it doesn't matter if you're a rebuilder. It doesn't matter if you were a contender. There is no excuse to not be going out and trying to trade for 2022, 2023 rookie picks right now, especially if you're trading away a player that's not going to be impacting the overall output from your starting lineup over the next few weeks. Now, thank you. I really hope that this video helped y'all out a little bit. I know we had a lot of success with our last sell high video. So yeah, of course you can still go through and check that out. I know you're not going to get as much value for some of those players at this time, but I mean, you can still go check that out. That was the video from last week. And yeah, that's all I got for y'all. Really hope y'all drop that like, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment letting me know how stupid I am. And that's all I got for y'all. Have a great day.